Give me 1 second. Okay. Welcome, everybody. This is the Planning Commission meeting to be held Tuesday, February 13th, 2024 at 6 p.m. The meeting's called to order. Would you please call the roll?
Alderperson Kastner is excused. Steve Rogers.
I'm here.
Brian Weiss is excused. Don Carlson.
Present.
Zach Marshall is excused. Bob Krenz. Mike Braswell is excused. Daniel Wojak.
Here.
And Mayor Knightsky.
Present. Danielle, an alternate, is eligible to vote this evening. The flu is going around, so apparently everyone's. I had it 2 weeks ago. It wasn't a pleasant experience. So, but I don't have it now.
We're glad you're better.
I'm glad I'm not getting the rest of you sick with it because it wasn't. All right. Item 2, I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes from January 9th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve.
By Commissioner Carlson, second by Mr. Kranz. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Item 3 is discussion regarding the last common council meetings.
We had only one public hearing. The Black Belt Leadership Academy on Highway 100 was approved by the Common Council.
Okay. Item 4 is a conceptual plan review for the Cold Spring Road development, a proposed new construction multifamily development to be located at 9605 West Cold Spring Road, submitted by John Curry and Rich Curry and Adam Hartel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a conceptual plan, so there will be no voting by the Plan Commission on this particular item this evening. However, it is an opportunity for the Plan Commission to provide feedback to the developer on, likes, dislikes, suggestions for potential future modifications to the plan. And so we'll move forward with the presentation. This particular property is just over 20 acres. It's owned by John and Rich Curry. It has, it was before the Plan Commission in 2018, I think, for a memory care type of building in the front and a future phase independent living in the back. Nothing came to fruition with that particular concept, and so they're bringing a new concept before the Plan Commission this evening. The property is zoned PUD already, which does provide flexibility for multiple buildings on one site and a higher density than your typical multifamily zoning. They are proposing 206 market rate multifamily residential units to be built out in 3 phases. The first phase would be 46 townhomes in 5 buildings. The second phase would be a 3-story apartment building in the back, either 70 or 90 units. The third, and then another similar mirrored building. If they do 70 units with the first one, they would do 90 with the other, approximately. So again, 3 phases and multiple buildings, townhome style, plus the 3-story hallway corridor type of buildings in the back. So this is their conceptual site plan. You see the townhome buildings in the front along Cold Spring. They do own this standalone parcel here, which we'll talk about a little more in detail, which is why it's not part of this particular property. You can see it's highlighted separately with We Energies. Has a substation here along Cold Spring in the back and a driveway kind of splitting these 2 parcels. So the larger townhome buildings, 4 in the front along Cold Spring, would have 10 units in each building, a multiple range of 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath, and 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath, ranging in size from about 1,600 square feet to 1,100 square feet. They do have attached garages that you would enter in through kind of like an alley that splits the 2 and 2 buildings here. And then there would be enough room behind the garages for vehicles to be parked there as well. And then the 2 3-story buildings you can see in the back of the site, and surface parking for 86 stalls in between the townhomes and the 3-story buildings. This right here is your 5th townhome building, which has a smaller number of units, and but same design concept with the garage and parking for a vehicle in front of the garage. So I'm not going to go into this entire table and category, but since it's existing planned unit development, it's what I'll call our generic planned unit development. It wasn't The ordinance wasn't created specific for this particular project, similar to what we've done recently, like we did for Spring Mall and we did for Loomis Crossing. We wrote an ordinance specifically for that particular property, listing permitted uses, listing particular setbacks and that sort of thing. So the city's zoning code does have a general planned unit development zoning layer, and it does have minimum open space ratios and maximum gross density and net density calculations. So you can see the zoning code requires 0.4, 40% open space. This is 76%. There's a lot of green space. It's a really odd shaped parcel. Going back to this aerial photo, so, you know, they're taking up this portion of the site, but then you have all the green space in the back left, plus it wraps around to the west of 99th Street, and this is all one parcel, so technically, yes, they do get to count that land area in their calculations. Regarding the density, what they're proposing is a little over what the code would allow. That's something that would need to be addressed in the future. That's something that maybe they would look for as far as feedback from the Plan Commission this evening. The city's zoning code has these two different calculations, gross density and net density, based off the entire site area and then net buildable area. So they're just barely over in the maximum net density, but over by 2 units an acre in the maximum gross density calculation. They would be requesting a front yard setback waiver. They're encroaching into the front yard setback by 10 feet with the proposal that you see in front of you. And then they do meet the minimum bedroom requirements for that particular PUD. So just kind of a side-by-side comparison of the portion of the land that they would be occupying. Again, you get the 4 townhomes here, and then the smaller 5th one, and then the later phases for the 3-story buildings in the back, and then stormwater retention here. You can see also the pathway. We've talked about this several times. This is which would connect to Cobalt's property to the east and connect to 92nd Street ultimately. So this is a continuation, a planned continuation. The Curry brothers and Cobalt have been, and the city have all been in detailed conversations with the expectation that this pedestrian path would be constructed here, and then it would continue up to 99th Street and hook up to the Oakleaf. Right? Oakleaf? Or is it I think it's Oakleaf.
Line.
Power line? Okay.
Next to the Oakley.
Yes, sorry. So then parking, again, not going to go into great detail, but the code does require 422 based off the number of units and the size of the units. They are short 86. Again, that's something that could be waived by the Plan Commission and Common Council. Staff does feel probably that there would be a need for more surface spaces for visitors. Potentially even laid out a little differently than all stacked here between the 3-story and the townhomes, maybe something a little closer to the townhomes as well. That's just staff's opinion, but again, feedback is welcomed from the Plan Commission this evening. So there are some concerns with that 5th townhouse to the east. That parcel, again, is owned by the Curry brothers. However, it's its own parcel, its own single family. It can't have a standalone 6-unit townhouse built on it based off its zoning. You can't skip over a lot line, We Energy's driveway, to rezone that planned unit development. We do require a 5-acre minimum for rezoning of planned unit development. So staff's suggesting if that townhouse is desired, they're going to have to do some sort of land swap with We Energies. And through a certified survey map, it seems to be the only feasible way to move forward with that 5th townhouse. Again, that's just something we kind of talked about at the last minute and something that would have to, be worked out in the future. And then additional comments on the site plan. Staff expressed these to the architect and the developers that it's really strongly desired to keep that existing tree line along the west property line. Let me show you a better aerial photo. So this tree line here that goes to the backyard of the homes on 99th Street. Try to accommodate more parking for visitors. Garbage details, a lot of details that come forward in the future, but, are we doing a couple central refuse enclosures, or are people going to have their own rolling carts that they'd be kept in the garage? Central mailbox, grilling area probably should be more centralized, and then the sidewalk that's parallel to Cold Spring should probably be moved just a little bit north into the actual right-of-way, so it's on public land. Okay, architectural details, we have a combination of materials, brick and hardy plank siding for the most part, asphalt shingles. So this is their kind of row house town style that you see, similar on the East Coast. It's very common. They have this false third story to kind of give it more architectural relief and, variety to the style. So it's not looking like just a long, flat building. And then staff just had some general comments in the staff report that, maybe like a wood grain type of look for the garages rather than your typical white garage door. And then whatever other feedback the plan commission may have. This is a side view of the buildings and then floor plan layouts. So again, for the townhouse style, 2-bedroom, 1.5 bath is one option, or 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath is another option. So with that summarizes my version of the project. I don't know if the developer has anything they want to add, or if, Mary, if you want to just go straight into questions, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, there's just I don't know if you can zoom in. There's a few things. It just seems like everything's front-loaded towards Cold Spring. There's a right-of-way there. At some point, we've been trying to put sidewalks along each of our quarter-section streets. You have a sidewalk essentially right next to the right-of-way that you want to kind of push forward towards the right-of-way. There's potential to be, that doesn't make much sense to me. That was one of the things. And I'm trying to find, I sent a bunch of emails, and I'm not sure if these were shared with you or not. The driveway on the east side, I don't know if you can pull that up, that's proposed, that
This one
right
right
there.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. I mean, this is thoughts.
Just trying to get we were mentioned in the sidewalk, were you talking about on Cold Spring, is that?
Yeah, there's a right-of-way there, and that you can kind of see where the right-of-way is, I think, by those dashed lines right there, right? And you're going to have a sidewalk that's within, I don't know, 8 to 10, I can't.
I don't remember do you remember the?
Yeah, I mean, it can be moved for sure. We have plenty of room. I think we have like 35 feet to kind of play with, so if it needs to be moved.
Yeah, I mean,
That's not a problem.
the setback, extending the setback to I think the building should probably be in line with the rest of the homes that are along the street for consistency. The driveway actually both driveways, the tree line that's there, so the highway to the west is incredibly noisy.
Yeah.
That tree line is a very mature tree line with oak trees and all that stuff, and in the summer, it kind of creates a barrier that prevents all the sound from coming from the highway to the west, like basically from flowing through the city.
Yeah, I think we could, just from me eyeing it up, I don't think there would be a problem saving it. I'd have to look into it a little more. When I read the comments, drove by, I don't.
And it's,
Yeah.
so there's two ways that sometimes developers do this, right? It's like, well, we saved the tree, but then there's a tree line and, right? There's some pretty majestic big trees in there, and I'm sort of a tree hugger, but the point is that it also provides a huge benefit to the community, knocking down sound. We've been trying forever to get sound barriers, and we struggle with the DOT, and that's sort of one of those natural sound barriers, and it also sort of protects the pretty significant development from the house or two that's to the west, right?
I think today, I know it's conceptually reviewed, just get the feedback from you guys to see I think what I'm hearing is,
That's kind of what I'm doing right now.
Yeah, right.
So and I had an email or 3 or 4 emails, and
Yes.
I don't know if these were shared with you. The part to the east, I mean, from my perspective, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but that's a driveway to We Energies, right?
right,
That you're kind of sharing to access the property. And I understand that you own the properties, two of them to the east, maybe? I don't know, or
One to the,
the white one there?
Yes.
So you don't own the one that's next to that?
No.
Okay. I struggle to put a 6-unit townhouse.
right,
With the
we're
house in the
gonna,
back.
yeah, we could, just from what Chrissy said, we'll address that.
I just don't see how
Yeah.
that works real well, and I think she made some good comments with it. The other thing is the access to the back, that curve, it's like, okay, that's the We Energies access, and now we're putting this little curve in there that seems to be a lot narrower.
Which were you talking, Mayor?
I don't know if she can point
Yeah.
to it right there.
That spot right there.
I mean,
Okay.
That's probably not real good.
It kind of
like
seems
that.
like a fire department's nightmare.
Well, it's a fire department nightmare,
Yeah.
and if phase 2 or 3 ever comes along with bigger buildings in the back, that's not gonna be significant or good enough access for that in any way, shape, or form. The fire department's gonna talk about radiuses, and yeah, you can get a big ladder truck probably through anything if you need to, but that's,
So you just,
so I'm
Have
thinking
it go-
sharing that access road with,
well, they were easy to work with. I mean, We Energies when we were,
well, I'm sure they're easy to work with, but this is the point. It's
Yeah.
like if you're gonna be investing a lot of money, and I suspect that you probably are investing a lot of money, to use their access road that is you're coming in off the road and you're looking right at a power substation, and then you kind of just take a right around it in a little narrow road. That's probably not aesthetically a great thing for the building, but it's also probably sort of bad
Yeah.
planning. Sort of bad planning, probably.
Do you have a solution on that? I mean, you have a thought on?
Well, you don't put the road there, you kind of put it somewhere else that isn't doing
Well-
it like that. Maybe have your own access, that it's not a shared easement with them. Because I'm guessing you're getting an easement from them for that?
yeah, well, this is shared, yes. The driveway, we share it with We Energies.
Yeah, so, I mean, that driveway was designed for access to a substation. It wasn't designed for access to 200 or 300 housing units, right?
That probably can't be broadened out, just that,
It could probably be moved westward, which would interfere with the building design, but that's why we're here, right?
Right.
So I think she brought up too, that the shared space.
Yes?
So if you have these 4 buildings, to put the shared, I'm guessing that's like the grill space or something, right? That you have to kind of do by code. To put it against the road is probably not a great thing. To put it next to a easement approach to a power station is probably not a good thing. And it's probably also not a good thing if you live in the western buildings, because you got to walk all the way from one end to the other through a driveway that is nothing but garage doors. So that's probably, and that's the next question. So if that were probably more centrally located, that probably makes some sense. And that probably doesn't mean, well, we'll just plop it in the middle, because there needs to be some sort of green space. I understand the technical sort of green space things that are out there, and using the lots along 99th Street, which I assume that you're going to want to build on someday with single-family homes or something. That's probably not in the calculations. And a lot of the stuff to the south of this property is kind of wetland-ish, I'm guessing, right? I mean, green space is kind of supposed to be in kind of where the people are living. It's not just a technical requirement that one builder that always wants to develop in Hales Corners. It's like, oh, well, the drainage ditch and I mean, green space is supposed to sort of mean something, kind of. That's just me, right? So you show a proposed building, 2 large buildings in the back, and you show a parking lot there. And it's unclear if that parking lot, which looks like it's not really part of this development, I don't know if it is.
The idea was to phase the project.
Well, so this is one of the issues that we always have with phases, is that usually they put the crappy stuff in the first phase, And then most people, a lot of developers do that. They put the crappy stuff at the first phase, and because the second and third phases are really the things that you like. And they say, well, once we get the first phase done, then, the good stuff will come later, and the good stuff sometimes doesn't come later, or times change and something happens. That kind of stuff happens quite a bit sometimes. So I don't know if this parking lot is the overflow parking for these townhouses, because currently there isn't anywhere for people to park if they don't park in the garage, which is sort of concerning.
Well, they could park in the driveway of the garage if they,
Yeah, but then when Joey has a birthday party and 30 people come over to the townhome,
not that many people like Joey. I'm teasing.
So while I'll just tell you a little story. A while back, I got divorced, and I ended up being like a manager of a facility that looks exactly like this. There are a lot more Joey birthday parties than you think, and so you have to
Not
take.
like Joey, but they like the cake.
They
Coming anyway.
They like the
It's free.
cake, and they like to leave stuff laying around all over that I would have to pick up. But that's another story.
We're
So
hiring.
there has to be some amount of parking. That's, I think,
I think the couple comments we got today with the road in the property to the east, I think going to give us some things where we could change some things, and I think that will probably change a little of the buildings behind us.
Okay.
So to take what,
this isn't the approval, this is just the griping part, during
Right.
the conceptual review where we try to not have you spend, because he's probably your architect, is he?
yes,
And he's probably really expensive, so every time he touches this, it's 10 or 15 grand probably, maybe not, maybe you're working on build out or something, I don't know.
right.
But the reality is, I would rather, if you did come back, that it looked kind of like what we want it to look like, as opposed to going through all this again, and then it's like the driveway's still not taken care of, and things still aren't centralized. And our only goal here is to make the city a better place, and I know that sounds really corny, but as I drive around the city, whatever you build here is going to be here for a really, really long time, well past the twilight of my whatever, right? Another thing I pointed out to staff, so there are a couple places like this in the city. One's a condo and another one's, I guess it's a townhouse kind of
Yeah,
thing. So the ones that seem to be successful are the ones that if somebody's parking in their driveway, they have an access into their house through a door. In this situation, it's Johnny's birthday party, grandma comes over, oh, you can park in our driveway. The way to go to the front door is to walk around all of the building down a sidewalk that's gonna be potentially adjacent to our sidewalk someday, and enter that way. The more successful ones and the ones that sell, and there are examples in the city, and I can send you pictures, they tend to have two entrances. They tend to have an entrance off the garage, and they tend to have an entrance off the front of the house, wherever that is. I would think that that would be a smart thing to do. What's the other issue with that? So places like this, we have ambulances, right? They come in, they're gonna pull into this place, they're gonna have an address, right? There's gonna be, and somebody is collapsed on a kitchen floor, right? And someone's being hysterical, right? And doesn't open the garage door. So our firefighters and our paramedics are actually gonna have to walk around the building to go to the front door to get in, right? As opposed to knocking on the door or whatever to get in. So I would strongly encourage the use of two entrances, if you still want one in the front and one off the back, or you don't even have to have an entrance off the front at all if the entrances are back by the garage doors. And there are examples in the city that people do that, and it works really well. Two entrances is probably good, and one of them shouldn't just be a garage door.
So Carl's not here. I'm going to ask you about snow plowing. In the front of the garage, are the tenants, are the owners shoveling, or are you guys
we're gonna sub that out. We're gonna,
subbing that out
Yep.
so they don't have to? And so they're pushing the snow. There's plenty of space for that. I just want to make sure that there's room for that, or that their people have that covered when they're moving in there.
So as you look at this, it's going to be an absolute nightmare to get the snow out of this.
Yeah,
where are you
it's
gonna
a-
put it?
I mean, I'm guessing it looks wide open there, but I guess that's not their property. They can't just push the snow down to the end. out
They
to-
can't, so yeah, when you look at the yellow lines
There's
and
the yellow
stuff where
line,
the
they can't just push
substation
that
is and
there.
all that stuff, and they can't
So
put it
that's being
there.
plowed and then having to be picked up, or where are you putting the snow when you? This winter's not a good example. This winter's been really great. We haven't had a lot of that. But a lot of winters, we have a lot more snow than we had this winter so far, so.
Well, I think, I, right off the top of my head, I'm not sure, but I think we could get it somewhere. I'm pretty,
Well, so this is the thing. I mean,
Right.
And this gets back to the city is just, we're really honestly just trying to help you a little bit.
Sure.
Not try to be, dinks about this. So the way that this is laid out, you're a snow plowing guy, because you seem to be a guy that's likes quality and price, maybe?
yeah.
So
And Joey.
the guys that do the price will be whacking the crap out of every one of those garage doors, and you will be fixing every one of them. And then our inspectors will be going through because we've got complaints that it's all falling apart in there and all. So we're trying to avert those kinds of things, and maybe, I think you probably want to do that too. My final comments, and I tried to send these off, and I'm not sure how they got there. I'm trying to imagine coming off Cold Spring on the Western Road and looking down the row in between the two buildings, and what I basically see is I see a roadway in the middle, and I see nothing but concrete driveways. I sort of see what it looks like there if you change the color in the center from light gray to dark gray. You're looking like a big slab of concrete in between two buildings, generally speaking. I'm not sure that that's the highest architecture. It might be the easiest thing to do, but I'm not sure that that's a great thing. I don't like that the buildings are so close together and there isn't some semblance of, so you're right next to a residential neighborhood, right? And I understand that the homes are all 40, 50, 60 years old, and there's next generations coming in, and everything that we do, we're trying to make the city better so that the next generation that comes along is enhancing the values and the properties that are here. And that's incredibly important for us. I'm not sure that that does that like that. I'm not sure that having all these individual, where you're going from into single-family homes on the one side, granted they're a little aged and worn, to the east, the ones across the street, and then you have those row houses with sidewalks just going in with a sidewalk, and I'm not sure that that's a great plan. It would seem that you'd kind of want to hide it a little bit, and you'd kind of want to make it more exclusive, and you'd probably want to push it south a little bit. That would be me. Then finally, the final thing that I'm a little concerned about is that the buildings in the back aren't defined at all. I have no idea what those are going to look like, and as part of this approval process, we'd be talking about creating a PUD based on what those buildings are and all of those things. And you can come in and you can show us, like these guys probably will, some really pretty pictures from Mandel later, right? And we could say, oh, those are really beautiful buildings, and we approve even the deficiencies because we know this phase 2 or 3 is coming with these beautiful buildings. But then it's like, well, things got too expensive, so we didn't build the beautiful buildings, and we're just going to put some more of these in or something, right? And I understand that has to go through us, but then it's always the question of, well, what else are we going to put there, right? Or we approve something, kind of in the generic form. There isn't enough parking for all of the buildings, even though the two in the back aren't well-defined, because I'm not sure you're putting underground parking there, maybe you are.
Yes, we were planning on it.
But underground parking is incredibly expensive. And I suspect, based on recent experience, that if you don't have to do underground parking, you don't want to, because it adds significant cost to construction. So if you don't put underground parking there, then that kind of changes because it's too cost ineffective or inefficient, then the entire plan changes. So I have concerns doing that. I certainly want high-quality residential development. I understand that apartments are sort of going to be the name of the game probably for a long time. But whatever we do, it really has to be good, and it can't just be thrown in. And part of me thinks that this was a design to, well, how can we get the most units on this piece of property, wherever we can do it? Maybe that isn't it. The buildings themselves look nice, right?
I like
But
the-
they're very close together. There's a concrete runway going through the center. Access has a lot to be desired. The tree line, which is important, needs to remain, and it needs to sort of be protected. You can't just go up to the, 4 feet off the trunk. It's got to be probably beyond the drip line of those trees. I understand that impacts the project a lot, and I'm not trying to be a jerk about it, but, yeah, I mean, that's where I'm coming from. And I'm not trying to, the final thing too, I guess, is I'd like to see how it fits in with what's being proposed to the east with Cobalt. There's a trail system, and there's and there's views, and there's all of that stuff. This is truly one of the last big areas within the city to be redeveloped. And it's a green field, and it needs to be done well. Does that make sense? I don't know.
Yeah, it
That's where I'm
makes-
coming from.
Well, that's what we want.
Yeah.
So I think we have a couple things to go back and to the drawing board and,
Can we just have you state your name just for the record into the microphone for our,
John Corey.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, I think you
Well, you
addressed
got
my
anything,
thoughts.
Jay?
I mean, if,
No, that's, I do agree with the mayor on the access in the back, the doors back by the garage door. So you've got an extra point of access there. I'm concerned about how, to me, that just looks really narrow. In the picture that's up there, the gray area, or the darker gray, that's the parking area of the garage there, right?
those are where the,
Yeah, so it's the alley plus that parking right there, so that helps a little bit. I didn't see that at first.
well, that's where people, do you have no, there isn't a picture of what, of the gray areas.
That dark gray is the parking and the garages, right?
Yeah.
No. It's
the
just
dark gray is a slab in front of the garage where a vehicle can park. So,
Which someone said is where people can also park.
yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, so it's
Like
not
tandem
quite as-
parking.
it's not quite as narrow as it looks, but still, when you're snow plowing back there, and you've got cars that are some in the garage, some in the driveway,
Yeah.
that's gonna be pretty tight.
And you have conflicting cars. You have cars pulling, I mean, that, right?
Yeah, you're trying to go to work, your neighbor's trying to go to work.
Or somebody forgot their kid inside and leaves their car running on this, I mean, that's, trust me, that happens
Yeah.
with great regularity, so.
You're right, we might get snow next year. and then
We're gonna get
gotta-
snow in 2 days. We're gonna get snow in 2 days.
I'll have to go to Florida because there'll be no place to leave their car here.
You can come with me. You can bring me along and I'll
Yeah.
comment from there.
I was gonna say, I also agree with having it set back just a little bit. I think it does feel very squished up to the road. And we don't want to set the people who live there up to park on Cold Spring, because that would
Right,
be
yeah.
not ideal at all.
There's no
It's-
place to park on Cold Spring. There's no place
Yeah.
to walk on Cold Spring right now.
It's dangerous
We've
to
been
bike.
talking about trying to get a sidewalk through there for a long time, and it's a challenge. I mean, part of it is that, sort of as part of the project, to probably try to get that in somehow, at least in that space.
Yeah, you can see the property line is closer to Cold Spring than the abutting ones. We didn't talk about
Which, so that's the
dedicating
other-
any land, but
So one of the issues has been at this parcel, this used to be a farm and there was a barn there. I don't know if everybody remembers that. I'm not sure if the city got the right of way along Cold Spring to the 60 feet or whatever it was, or more. One of the reasons that we can't put sidewalks in on some streets is because things have been done in a hodgepodge way over the course of time. And there is the right of way and then it stops, and there's no way to get it through that. There is a way to buy it, or when situations like this materialize, to acquire it as part of the process, which is, I think, what we should probably be doing, if it's not the blue line. What are the plans on 99th Street?
On 99th,
Yeah,
nothing right now.
they're not,
Well, we're still looking.
I mean, as far as green space goes, while it's technically part of the lot,
Right.
it's probably disingenuous to consider it part of the green space for the development as a practical matter, as opposed to, well, technically it is.
Well,
The green space should be usable. I mean, if it's gonna be there, it should be usable.
Yeah. I mean, something, I mean, that's kind of the point, right? So,
all right.
yeah, I mean, the densities, I mean, are, if it's done well, and I think it can be done well, aren't unreasonable potentially with such a large spot, but is this gonna be a TIF?
Yes.
So this is the thing with TIFs, is that TIFs are the TIF are investments by the community to make the community a better place. It's usually things that we can't do on our own, or a developer can't do on his own, simply because there's a building that needs to be torn down, or there's a sewer that needs to be moved, or there's a path that needs to be created. So if there is going to be a TIF, there's a pretty high standard. Typically, we'd never liked to just TIF apartment buildings, just for the sake of TIFing apartment buildings, unless we got something in return that was of great value to the community, right? I mean, that's kind of, and that sometimes that works well, and sometimes economic hard times and interest rates blow things out of the water. But generally speaking, this has got to be a net benefit to the community for TIF to be considered, not just how many units can we get in. Does that make sense? I mean, that's,
Yeah, absolutely.
is this Whitnall or Greenfield? Is it Whitnall? So this would require the creation of a separate TIF district. It couldn't be added to an existing TIF. And the parcel that's to your east, one of the Cobalt parcels is also Whitnall. And at one point, they talked about creating a TIF, and that was their phase 2, I think, or something.
Wouldn't work because, well,
I don't know if they're even adjacent
because
to each other. They're
you
not
have,
adjacent to each
they're
other,
not just,
right?
yep, they're not. You've got the substation in between.
So there's a lot of analysis, and there's a lot of but-for stuff that the law requires, that but for the tax incremental financing assistance, something wouldn't happen. On this parcel, this is essentially, it is a green field. There's nothing, there's no demolition of buildings, there is a sewer line that's going through, but we're paying for it, I think on your southern end somewhere. There's a path that's going through. But generally speaking, this isn't the kind of property that, unless it's tied to something else, that just gets it.
Right. Well, I
Doesn't mean
just,
that it can't get it, I'm just saying
Right.
that there has to be some,
Mm-hmm.
gotta be some
Mutual benefit.
significant benefit. I can't, and that's not just us, I mean, that Whitnall, MATC, Milwaukee County are all gonna chime in and say, what's the net benefit of this? And why, why does it require this? So that's,
yep.
okay.
All righty. Well, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be just, I know I sound like,
No. I'd rather you tell me your thoughts than your feelings.
no, I don't have feelings.
No, I'm okay. It's
You can
all
ask my
good.
ex-wife, I don't have any feelings. No, I actually have feelings, that I cry during It's a Wonderful Life, and the Frosty scene where Santa Claus comes back to life every time I start crying. So I have a lot of feelings, they're just really pent up. But when it comes to this stuff, it's just, I'm just trying to make it better, right? I think most things.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thanks. Item 5 is a certified survey map for proposed land combination of 4,000 South 92nd Street and 9137 West Waterford.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The property owner owns both parcels. This used to be a house. It was torn down actually by the city because of its dilapidated state. The county foreclosed on the parcel. This homeowner purchased the parcel from the county and now would like to erase this lot line and combine the two parcels into one lot. This is required through a certified survey map process. This could be expedited to next week's common council meeting.
So this is Mr. Berlin, who is a wonderful human being. Is anybody his neighbor that doesn't like him? No, I just want to make sure that these days you have to be very careful who you call wonderful, I guess. But that big parcel there in the corner was one of the worst houses in the city. It had been a drug house. People had broken into it, were going to excrementing in 5-gallon cans, and it was an amazingly bad place. The city a long time ago, with the help of Milwaukee County, bought it. It was foreclosed on. All of that stuff happened. Mr. Berlin bought the property. As you can see, his house has got a tiny lot from way back when. I strongly encourage allowing him to combine it. I also want to point out, this is for the Zoning Board of Appeals, I think at some point, with regard to a potential garage. So what we've tried to do is he bought it with the hopes of building a garage, right? A 3-car garage, and the minutes probably should reflect this. You can't build an accessory structure on a separate lot. It has to be part of a combined lot, okay? So Mr. Berlin has gone through considerable expense combining the parcels to build that garage. That being said, there are still things, and I would hope that the minutes reflect here, that the Planning Commission, he can't build the 3-car garage potentially because of some accessory structure kind of thing, right? I would hope that he would go to the Zoning Board of Appeals and that we would think, or we would encourage, even though we don't, right, that such a structure on that parcel would be appropriate. This is an overhead before this neighborhood was improved. This neighborhood was just completely reconstructed with sewers and curbs and all of that stuff. The neighborhood looks amazingly better and different. I think everyone agrees with that. As part of that process, at the very end, we managed to enhance the driveway approach along Waterford to accommodate a garage potentially, understanding that there's still a decision to be made about that in the future, but it was better than coming through later for something that I think for most people there's common sense, right? So we've taken that into account. So I would make a motion to approve the certified survey map, which was corrected as presented by Mr. Berlin, and I would have the minutes reflect that the Planning Commission wouldn't object to the 3-car garage that has been contemplated not only in the engineering of the road, but with regard to why he combined this parcel. He spent considerable dollars buying this and is now combining it.
I'll second that.
I made that motion. Commissioner Carlson seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. He is truly a nice person. His wife is better, but he's a pretty good guy right there. So you need to give that to her tomorrow or tonight, the certified survey? Did he give it to you?
We talked about it, not yet.
Not yet? Is this the need for it? But you need a copy of it, right?
Eventually, yeah. Yeah, we talked.
For the, okay, I just want to make sure. All right, you're all good? Okay, that sound good to you? All right.
Thank you.
Item 6, special use review for proposed hours of operation change to Melton Dip. Are they here tonight? Let's do this. Located at 7820 West Layton Avenue, submitted by Hiba Wadala, doing business as Melton Dip.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. They are requesting to expand the hours of operation only during the month of Ramadan. From here forward, this would require an amendment to their resolution. Staff suggesting this is not a major change that would require a public hearing. This resolution could be on next week's common council meeting with an amendment to expand the hours from midnight to 2 a.m., again, only during the month of Ramadan, which you can see the calendar here. It changes the month, the celebration changes every year. The time period when it falls, it begins 10 to 12 days earlier each year from the previous year. Staff's recommending approval. It's due to the fasting requirements of the celebration of Ramadan. It's in a commercial corridor, so staff doesn't feel any issues should arise with the extra hours for this particular business at this particular location.
How late is Brass Tap open?
I suppose bar time on the weekends, yeah.
Yeah.
This would be every night
This is
for a
every
month.
night.
Yeah, it is.
It does.
That's the
give-
request.
It does
I mean,
give
most
me
of those
pause.
places, most things close along the quarter at 10 p.m., right?
Yeah. Greenfield sleeps.
Well, I mean,
Yeah. Then it kind of,
residential around there.
I wonder if we want to make it so permanent, or we do it just 1 year and see how it goes? Unless there's other discussion.
I like that.
So, just to be clear, this change in the special use doesn't just attach to this business.
Okay.
It attaches to any restaurant. So let's
You're right.
pretend that they
You are
left
right.
tomorrow and Pizza Hut wanted to, not, Pizza Hut's not built, but if, with Pizza Hut, right? Pizza Hut could stay open until 2 in the morning or something, or if there was something, and during Ramadan.
You're saying it would set
I'm
precedent.
not sure that it's appropriate to,
I think that's a good point.
And
Yeah.
what about Easter? What if I want to stay open during Easter?
I don't, I,
And if you don't want to amend the resolution, then I think we would just take it to the council. It'd be in the minutes that this 1 year, if that's the approach you want to take, 1 year, this in 2024 during this 30-day period only,
I
Can we
think
do
that's
not
probably-
amend the resolution.
I think that's a better thing to do.
Specific for Melton Dip.
Or this.
On a 1-year trial.
Sure.
So it's kind of a temporary use, right?
Yeah.
As opposed to a
Temporary.
permanent special use?
Yep.
Can we
So that-
specify it to this location?
It would be, so the temporary use would be exclusive to this restaurant?
Okay.
Unlike the special use, which carries with the land, kind of?
Therefore, we don't amend the resolution.
So you don't amend the
Okay.
resolution?
It would just be in the minutes,
It would just be you giving them,
discussion of minutes.
I think the common council would have to make a decision on
Yep.
allowing a temporary use at this location.
Yep.
For the time of the 30, whatever, how many days it is from March?
For,
Just the one day?
it's the whole month.
It's the entire month.
It's,
Yeah.
that's got it,
And just talk about this year.
this year.
2024 only.
Yep.
I think that's the right way to do it.
Okay.
I concur.
So the motion would be to disallow or to not change the resolution concerning the special use, but to recommend approval of a temporary use for the 30-day period on an annual basis to be approved by the common council. Yeah. And implemented by staff, something like that, right?
So moved.
You gonna make that motion? I'll make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
By Commissioner Krantz, all in favor?
Aye.
I
Aye.
think I'll abstain.
Abstain? Okay. Actually, a really good place to get desserts. Have you ever gone in there? It's absolutely insane. It's some of the best desserts you'll ever find on earth. Okay, item 7, plan appeal for Vape City Tobacco located at 4969 South 27th Street, submitted by Rasheen Atchison, doing business Vape City.
Thank you, Mr.
Is he
Mayor.
here? Is he around?
The sign company
The sign
representative.
guy's here?
So this is the Vape City Tobacco building right next to Paul's Liquor. And they're seeking a waiver for two things. One, the number of wall signs and total square footage allowed. So the code allows 2 wall signs per business. Of this size, they're proposing a third. The code allows 97.5 square feet for this particular address. They're proposing 118. So the application stated that the reason they're seeking the variance is a proposed letter set would complement the neighboring business of Paul's Wine and Liquor. However, the complement is in color only. They have different fonts, different sizes, different spacing between letters. So staff is just suggesting some modifications. Staff is comfortable with a third sign. However, we would like it to stay within the allowable square footage of 97.5 square feet, and that the font does reflect. These two buildings complement each other architecturally. They were designed that way. So staff just feels that the design should, in the signage, if that's, that's the argument that was made to us. And so staff is just recommending that the font truly does reflect and be complementary to Paul's Wine and Liquor font.
And the thing in the center is like an architectural element kind of thing, even though it's considered a sign. Those whatever those are in the middle.
Oh, those are signs,
the
yes.
Logo, right?
Yep, logo. Mhm.
So those can stay. And
Yeah, they can, this would be the third sign.
So you're the sign guy?
Yeah.
Can you do that?
So the issue.
Can you please state your name and who you're with on the microphone, please?
Justin Silva with Michael Signs. If we scaled that down based on the stroke of the letters, so the issue is that there's a rectangle drawn around that entire sign band as opposed to each individual, which then it would be considered individual signs. But taking it down roughly 20 square feet, I believe it was, is going to decrease those letters quite a bit to where the scaling still needs to remain, but that being the case, the letter set might be, let's say, 10 inches versus the 24 that's proposed. It's possible. It is close to South 27th.
Right.
So
How big were the letters for the liquor store next door? Do you know how tall?
Unfortunately, I don't have that. Oh, sorry, I do have it. So 1 foot 6 inches and 16 feet long.
So if you make them 1 foot 6 inches,
Yeah, and we're looking to kind of match obviously the font too, as a revision in the drawing is staff request.
so if you
right?
can match the font and
Right.
you can, so it looks like it's together, I don't see a,
Do we have a street view of it?
huh?
Do we have a street view of it so we can put the pieces together?
There was,
It looks like the font at the wine and liquor store are a bit more narrow also.
It's more condensed, yeah, based on the script.
Okay. So is that something?
Mr. Ashton wanted to bolden the font in his letters as much as he could for visibility. That's why we did it.
Do those light up?
Yes, they're internally lit.
Okay.
Just as Paul's
Okay.
Wine and Liquor is.
so the sign at Paul's works really well, I think.
It's bold.
So if
It
you
lights
could be
up.
consistent, that would probably.
Sure,
I think.
thanks.
I'm gonna read it too. Well, I guess if we have a conclusion, then
I mean, do you want to see it, right? Or do you want to see it?
Yeah,
She's very close.
Sorry.
Can you zoom? Yeah.
okay, okay.
So that would work really well, probably, right?
I like the condensed version.
Go,
I don't
You don't care.
care, honestly, as long as they're the same height and
You
they
want to see
sort
it
of
to the
look
left?
good.
Chrissy, can you scroll over so we can see the building to the left? There you go. That's yeah. Yeah.
And there are additional signs in the windows with the logo too?
That's at Paul's. Paul's
Oh, I thought it was.
notorious for
okay.
putting things in his windows that we remind him to take down.
Okay, I was gonna say, I'm pulling up an image here and it looks like there's quite a few.
Yeah, there's,
But I mean, if you're good, then
So last Friday, I spent 2.5 hours driving around the city with our new code enforcer that's now in the hands of our police department. And we went basically we talked about a lot of things.
we got a lot.
We went down 27th Street, we went down Forest Home, we went down 76th Street, we went down 100, we went down Loomis, went everywhere. Drove through Spring Mall. Noticed that it was just a mess.
You just drove by, or did you go in each business?
We don't go into the business, so when you walk around with a guy that carries a gun and a taser and you don't want to, we drove around in my car, so we didn't freak people out parking in front of their place. I'm guessing people called because I have an old car that's rusting, but
Suspicious driver.
it was pretty suspicious.
So are we doing the 97
I think
square
if it's the
feet?
same
Okay.
height as the Paul's, which is 1 foot
1.5,
6
mhm.
Yeah, 18-inch letters, is that what that would be? Yeah.
And the length? That's the biggest difference is the stretched out length.
Yeah, I mean, so the point is that the way that this is drawn, it goes basically from the top, or what is that thing called? The entry thing, the little jut out, right? Yeah. He's putting the letters all the way across. If you look at Paul's, there's probably 3, 4, 5 feet on either side of the sign. Yeah. As opposed to his version where there's no, so you can probably center the 18-inch letters somewhere in between, which would probably solve his problem. It would probably match the building next to it, right?
It would look nice too.
It'll look better,
It'll look nice.
honestly.
Wouldn't it be wide justified?
And for him to keep the two logos.
I think the logos can stay.
Yeah.
So that building was designed to be potentially multi-tenant. So if he cuts it in half someday, then it could be a different logo in the center. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Does anybody want to make a motion for that?
I'll make a motion to approve with changes to font size and style matching Paul's Wine and Liquor next door.
Consistent with that, okay. Is there a second? Second by Carlson, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, motion carries. Very good. Item 8, conceptual plan review for a proposed new construction multifamily development to be located at former Spring Mall property, 4200 South 76th Street, submitted by Philip Aiello.
3 letters, ILO.
The Mandel Group.
Phil or Eric, who's gonna,
I'll lead,
Phil's-
but then Eric's.
Phil's gonna start transition to Eric. So Mandel Group asked to do the presentation for this particular project, so we'll start with Phil from the Mandel Group, and then we'll move to Eric, who's the architect.
Just before you start too, just because I noticed that there are some neighbors here, I think, to Spring Mall, aren't there? So there were a few things that, I know you're going to go through your site plan and you're going to address these things. There were a few things. The first was the neighborhood to the east and making sure there's a fence that's supposed to go in that I think will go in, trying to create the buffer there. There was the Sokol property, which was the triangle on the corner, right? That was another issue. There was the property along 76th Street, the house where the interesting family used to live. I don't know who lives there now. Trying to do what we can with the Myers Restaurant to the extent that they can, sort of fit it in there and keep it there. But protecting the neighborhood to the east was a pretty strong idea. This is a conceptual review, so this isn't approving anything, right? Just so you know, okay?
Thank you. So I am Phil Aiello with Mandel Group. I'm here with Dan Ronrick, our development manager, Eric Ponto from Engberg Anderson, Chris Carr from Sigma Group, who's the civil engineer. Eric is really going to go through the design, but I wanted to give an update on where we are on a number of items. Knowing how eager the city is to have this development moving forward, Well, Eric is the only one here. He has a team of 4 others that he's working with at Engberg Anderson, and Chris Carr is working with Chip Leadham at Sigma. We're having regular weekly design meetings to advance the design and respond to comments from the city. We have a meeting, our first meeting with the owner of Myers tomorrow morning. We are in talks with Steve Sokol to purchase his 6th Street, and on my way to an event for my son, and the owner called me. So we are in talks with him as well. No commitment there, but I'm hopeful that we'll be able to come to an agreement for that home. But with that, I wanted to turn it over to Eric, who will go over the specifics of the design.
Thank you. Again, Eric Ponto, I'm with Engberg Anderson. So this is the plan that we had submitted on 1/30, and I'll just kind of go over this, but I do want to show an updated plan because we've continued to evolve the design based on comments we've started here. So you can see the number of units here, 288. Those are located in 12 buildings. Each one of those buildings you can see are basically a repeat of a very similar building type. And then the parking, we've got 10 parking spots in each building that are structured in the building. And then we've got 10 spaces for each building on a slab. And then we have additional street parking and structured garages and surface parking. So the counts there, those are consistent still. There are some comments that we got right before we submitted on the 29th, and those were picked up in this plan because we had discussed the week before and the night before, and we were able to make those changes pretty quickly. One of those was about the buffer. We had a buffer here on the east side to the adjoining neighbors, but based on conversations, we did extend the size of that buffer, and the garages that used to be kind of in that buffer space were moved to the west to increase the size of that. The other piece that we had conversations about late was the storm and sanitary lines. You'll see these dotted red lines. Those are existing storm and sanitary lines. The storm especially is rather large, about 42 inches. So we tried to place all the buildings, including garages, in places that we don't go into the footprint or the easement of those storm and sanitary. The one area we do have a conflict is this little jogging piece here really limited our ability to kind of utilize that portion of the site. So you see a dark kind of magenta piece there. That is a proposed sanitary line relocation. Now the sanitary line there is not that large, it's 13 inches. So compared to the 42 inches of the storm, we thought that made sense. So that's still kind of an early developing piece, but I think right now we're staying out of the footprint of most of the large components there.
I wasn't watching you. Initially, you were talking those parking spots, those garage entrances are on the other side? Is that what you said?
Well, originally there were freestanding garages located kind of in this area here in that buffer zone. So they were, you see this little blue piece here, that's a freestanding garage. We originally had 2 of those over in this area as well. And after conversations, we kind of moved the site plan around a bit, got more green space for a buffer there to the east. So what you see here though, those are the outdoor slabs. So for each one of those spots there, that is a garage, but then there's an additional slab spot outside that garage.
The slab spots are directly in front of the garages or across like a thoroughfare?
They're directly in front of the garage, and I might have a blow up in a little piece here, or in the renderings we can show it. The idea is that we've got almost like a city street, or we're trying to replicate a city street, that you've got the street, we've got a 3 to 5 foot greenway, then we have a sidewalk. And so even in this zone, and you'll start to see it in the renderings, we're trying to treat this as a street, and so that it's a pedestrian-friendly experience.
Separation between the slabs?
Yeah, and then so each one of those slabs that you see here, the width that's 2 garages, so it's a double, kind of double driveway feeding 2 garages. Then there's a landscape strip, and then there's either another garage condition, or in some cases, an entry to another unit at the ground floor.
When you say the strip of landscaping, is that grass?
Probably decorative grass,
Okay.
not just a mow,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm just thinking that salt is going to be rough.
Exactly, yep. And these are, again, these are schematic for us too. We've got, we understand we're getting comments back from this group on the schematic. We also have a meeting set up for the 20th with city staff and engineering side. We have the Myers meeting coming up tomorrow. And then our plan, we've been in conversations about a meeting with the adjacent neighbors, specifically the neighbors to the east. That is not yet scheduled. The other piece that happened, we had a meeting on the 29th with DOT, county, DNR, and city staff. And that was really about the the main entry points, which are here on 76th Street and then here on Forest Home. Out of that meeting, and this plan changed to reflect that meeting, we had talked about a third entry somewhere in here, because we control this little parcel here, which is used both by Arby's and Hardee's, but that is part of this parcel. And then there's a little drive here, which is used only by Arby's now, but used to be one of the main entries into the mall. We had talked about a third entry point there. The DOT really talked about the difficulties of this intersection, and we're concerned about adding more traffic through that intersection. We talked about the second one here, but I think everyone thought that it might add congestion to this area. And as we started to look at it, we felt confident with our 2 main entry points and the way that we have kind of continuous circulation around the site that we could go with the 2 entries. And so I think right now that we made that adjustment and we're showing only 2 main entries into the development. The other piece we talked about at that meeting was this median. As we said, there's a single-family home here that is in negotiation to be purchased. It's giving us some flexibility about then the placement of this. You'll see this curb cut in the median here. That road right now, the entry does come in right about there. There's currently some issues with the stacking space for traffic here who are making a left turn onto Cold Spring. And so it was talked about the benefit of maybe moving that drive lane up. This is reflecting kind of a placement currently. It is not the final placement. It's still being discussed with the county, with DOT, DNR, et cetera. We placed it here with the idea that it would be nice if it didn't go any further to the east because of this single-family home as traffic coming out, headlights, et cetera. But trying to give as much stack space here. So again, it's still in process, and I think we've got enough buffer here that the next adjacent neighbor, I think there's about 100 feet of buffer between that drive lane and here on this current plan. It's very likely this might slide a little further south, increasing that buffer, but we're waiting for the next meeting with the DOT to confirm that.
So what's all the stuff in the middle? The green, where that angle, what is that?
So the idea here, one of the big ideas we had is really kind of connecting the development into the larger community. And we know that Myers we're hoping, is going to be a participant in the development. And we'd really like to kind of blend them into the development so it makes sense. And we've got City Hall and the amenities across the street. So we made this big gesture that connects both Myers, connects to the adjacent properties to the south, and really brings you up into the center kind of green space here, and then further makes a connection to the Powerline Trail. Along this kind of wide path would be then the amenities, and the idea is that each one of these zones, we would have something going on with either landscape or structured amenities. This is our clubhouse with a pool, but there might be other things that happen in this green space. And so that really kind of brings you to the heart of the development, and all the kind of active zones are more centrally located internally, so they're not affecting adjacent parcels. I'm sorry, Phil, you were?
Want to just talk about what we do with the Myers building?
Oh, so what we're showing here too, this is not the way it currently is. There's currently parking here, but we'd really like to create, again, this green zone that comes through here. And we'll learn more about what Myers needs for their drop-off, so I'm sure we're going to make some adjustments here. The second piece of this, as you know right now, there's kind of an extension right now of a retail space that's currently not being used, so we would demo that. And so we still have to work out how they handle trash hauling and deliveries and everything. So I think that conversation, we'll get a little more information tomorrow. This is very likely going to be adjusted, but we'd like to hold on to this big idea of creating that connection to the larger neighborhood. So again, this plan is the one that we submitted. I'd like to kind of show you the next iteration that picked up some other comments. So one of the big things here, and I'm sorry, it's a little hard to read here, we started to add all the sidewalks that really would be necessary, because the idea here is these buildings are two-sided. So there's driveways on one side, but each one of these will also have front doors on the other side. So you'll see that every building has sidewalks going around it to accommodate entry for guests that are coming to a front door. The other thing, we started to really show that, like a city street, that we're providing some parking on these streets. So every street is two-way, but we're also trying to find spots where if you have a guest coming, they park on the street like a city street, come to your front door. We also have some other adjacent open parking here and then here. And each one, we're trying to accommodate softening those parking spaces by providing green zones, both for stormwater management, for aesthetics as well. And then this area here that we've been showing, the pond, we're still using that as stormwater treatment. It is before it was shown as a blue zone and really looking like open water, but now it's really a biofilter. And we do have our civil here, and I don't know if he can explain exactly what the biofilter would look like and do, if that's beneficial to the group.
I'm
good.
Do you want to hear? Yeah. I know what biofilters do, but
I can imagine it, yeah.
Is everyone? Okay.
it's pretty exciting stuff, too.
But I think what we're saying as well is that I think the benefit is that this area can really be kind of a varied green zone instead of a place that's holding water. And I think the low point of the site is kind of in this area here, so there's a natural flow of water getting to this area. But we're also thinking that we're going to handle some of that biofilter you'll see here and really create an amenity for the development, that there'll be a varied kind of planting because of those biofilters in this area. And it really allows us then to not rely on one zone for that biofilters to happen. We can hit it here and have this secondary zone here.
And you're still contemplating a fence along that?
Yes. And I think that in that upcoming meeting that is being scheduled with the neighbors, that's one of the conversations we like to have, because we really see kind of three options for how we're handling that buffer. One is the fence. The second is berming and changing the landscape, vertically to allow some change in elevation. And the third is the landscape itself, what we're planting along this zone here, and providing some variety both in seasonal and the type of species we're planting. So I think there's that conversation. We'd like to be more specific about the needs and wants of the neighbors to the east.
Do you have pictures of what it looks like?
We do.
Buildings?
We do. I put these.
You got a present. I thought she was, never mind.
No, I do have those. But
Eric's in charge.
sorry. We did get these comments on last week on the 2nd, and these are in process. We have not yet addressed all those comments, and I know there's still comments coming. Some of these were similar to what we had talked about before, the Forest Home median, the interior street design we're going to be talking about. The fire department connection at Myers, we got a specific request. There's currently a fire department connection over here, and they'd like to see if we can somehow get that up in the Myers. We'll be talking about that. Pond concerns, I think before when we showed a big blue area here, there was concern about water in that pond overflowing, potentially affecting the neighbors' basements. And so right now it will not be a place that's holding water, so it'll be basically used as filtration. snow storage. We have designed kind of areas, you'll see at the end, the terminus of streets. There's a bunch of open areas where we anticipate snow storage to happen. But when we come back, Mandel does have a third-party group that looks at site plans, and they'll be able to have a more detailed report about how snow specifically is being handled on site. Mail, you'll see there's a little area here called mail, and I've got a little drawing I want to show that's schematic about how we're handling that. Garbage location, it will be centralized. You'll see a little place right here. And it's a concierge service, which I did not have this when I rented an apartment, but basically everyone will have someone who will come to their front door, and they'll have put out on their stoop their garbage, which will be brought by staff to a centralized location. There's a compactor here. And so the idea is on trash day, one truck will come up to one spot, and that spot is put intentionally away from adjoining property owners, so the noise and whatever happens with that trash is kind of far away from any of the neighbors. And then this piece will be fully concealed behind walls, so you won't see the dumpsters except when it's being removed on trash day. And then public utility concerns, we're working through those, but I think a lot of that was about the sanitary and storm kind of issues. Oops, wrong way. So this was just a diagram, and again, this is schematic, but we do really look at how mail-in packages are delivered. There will be a central spot. The idea is that at the leasing club room, and again, this is schematic right now, that there would be a zone, a covered zone for centralized mail and packages. And you know, we're even thinking about how there'll be a temporary short-term parking for package delivery, so they can come up and really controlling that you know, all the packages that come. And staff will be close by to kind of monitor and maintain that. So it is something in process. This is not the final design, but just to let everyone know that a comment came up and we are looking at that. Went the wrong way again. So we did provide some kind of images that evoke both the landscape and the materiality that we're looking on the site. So again, these are early, but the renderings show that we've got some brick veneer, we've got some different materials. We're really thinking the palette here is going to be kind of a warm palette. We're hoping that the landscape has a varied look to it. There'll be some very manicured portions, but we're looking to have some natural grasses and things as well. So to provide some kind of variation within the site. I keep going the wrong way. Yeah, I'll get it by the end. So again, some other materials that we're looking on the palette. We're looking at some natural wood look products, some natural products, stone. And again, our intent is that you'll see these, and right now the buildings are, they're basically very similar, well they are, they're the same building in each footprint. We know as we develop it, there are always some variation, and we know that based on previous conversations or things we've seen, there's a desire to have some variety among the buildings. So what we're showing here is kind of a palette of materials, how it's applied to the building. It will not be 12 buildings that are exactly the same plopped on the site. We've got buildings that face directly under the street. We'd like to treat those a little differently than buildings that are internal to the site. And then some views have, or some buildings have great views across the green space. You know, we'll treat those a little differently than we'd have buildings that are looking, you know, onto a city street. So I think the rendered images that, son of a gun, the rendered images you see here, they're showing a fairly repetitive building, but that is not the intent. And when we come back, you'll see that variation that we're talking about. This does show kind of that big move we discussed. So this is Myers, and again, we're proposing that we're going to work with them to kind of update it, clad it, work it into the development so it becomes basically a neighborhood restaurant that we're part, you know, they're part of our neighborhood and part of the larger neighborhood. But then this larger move that you see here, the idea is that that is a path that brings you into the development, connects the residents to amenities that occur within that path, and then really kind of subdivides that space. You know, having a big green space is not that useful unless it can be utilized. So they're, looking into it is great, but if there's activities and variety of plantings within it, I think that's our goal. And then you start to see here the intent of creating sidewalks, even though we do have curb cuts, we do have parking, how can that feel like a neighborhood street and have a feel that's not just about cars, but it's about people and pedestrians moving through the space?
Eric, when you walk into a unit, does your unit have a first and second floor, or is it a first or second?
It is a
unit?
first or second,
First
yes. So
or
you have
second.
you have some units that are on the second floor only, and so they'll have a door that gets to a stair.
Okay. And it might just be the way the 3D rendering, to me, this looks like, the second floor is like vault ceilings or 9 or 10 foot tall ceiling.
Well, it's funny you caught that.
Okay.
Because yes, the second floor is a little larger on these than we would intend. Now, that being said, we are looking at, there's some big units on the second floor, especially on the corners. And we do think that there's an opportunity for, like here, if that's a living room at the end, that would be a vaulted ceiling. So we are going to take advantage of that roof volume we get through those roof forms. So this is looking back the other way. So the club room is at 76th Street, and you'll see this is the path. So that previous view, we were standing here looking back this way. Now we're at the club room and the pool, and you'll see that path really kind of connects visually from this amenity zone and then to the rest of the development.
Does that connect to the power line trail somewhere?
Yes, and so we do, in fact, on this view here, so this connects up, that's the amenity zone there, and then directly across, we connect this path to the power line trail. So there's a direct link between this and that kind of crossroads happens right at the amenity space at the club room. So you kind of come there and then you connect into the power line trail. And we're placing amenities based on that access to the power line trail too. We've got a dog wash station there, so people walking their dogs come back and they will have a spot to clean up. So then this is the view on 76th Street, again, looking back to the south. And you can see kind of the amenity space. And then that power line trail, it's hard to see, but our connection kind of happens right at that point to the trail.
And speaking of the power line, this is something I think should be discussed at the neighborhood meeting. With a fence between this development and the neighbors to the east, there wouldn't be an opportunity to connect them to the power line by going through Mandel's development. And if that is the desire, that's the desire. But that might just be something for them to think about of, do they want a central location connecting the power line to Mandel to their neighborhood? Because I don't think it's very easy for them to get to the power line without cutting through a neighbor.
That's something for them to talk about?
It
whether
is.
They want to
It
not
is.
be included, or if they
Exactly.
through there now to go to the power. I don't know if the people in the neighborhood even walk the trail.
Right, so it's just something that maybe that conversation could be
But it's
sparked
something
at that.
that-
Yep.
This is the time to talk about that?
It is.
I walk the power line trail often, and I don't see anybody coming from those neighborhoods that are along Forest Home there. Is that the one? Yeah, I see the people, but I don't see them coming to the trail. I mean, I ate at Myers this morning.
No, I mean, so I'm mostly concerned about the people that are actually in the neighborhood
Yeah.
getting to the power line trail, because right now, in order to get there,
There is nobody, this is not a neighborhood, this is a big empty space. So the people that.
no, not that.
People in this neighborhood may go to the power line trail, but the people that are on that Forest Home strip, I don't think they're going there, and they don't have far to go down Forest Home to meet up with it. Nobody needs to start in the middle. There's roads, every half a mile, you can get to the power line trail.
Right.
So,
It's
I don't know
just
if we're gonna
whether
have time
the-
for a public comment, but I'm a public person.
No, me too.
We'll talk
So that
about it
neighborhood-
at the neighborhood
That
meeting.
neighborhood has like,
This is John, you know?
yeah, that neighborhood has like 11, 12, 13 houses, right? I can't remember exactly how many are in there. And it's a question of whether or not that neighborhood of the 11, 10, 12, whatever,
15.
wants to have an access, or if they think that it,
There are connections to the power line trail on either side of 76th Street. on the other side of 84th Street, they cut through the neighborhoods, and people do walk their dogs, and I see them come in there, and then, of course, they leave their stuff, but, they do get to it, but you can always go to the corner, 92nd, 84th, there's a lot of ways to get to the power line.
I'm trying to make it better for you guys that live in that, than the triangle, or whoever lives in that triangle, as opposed to everybody else, because most people aren't gonna walk through the neighborhood to the east to hook up to the path. They're gonna do what you say they're gonna do.
Right.
So, okay.
Just a point of,
I think that was the last image. I can go back if any.
Are you gonna put new power posts? They're gonna be white.
Yeah, I like the
That's
look of the
cool.
power. I kind of,
Is that
if you
cool?
if you could work on that and make it look like that, that'd be great. Like, they look kind of like little lighthouses. That's fantastic. Is that the building there that kind of looks like a greenhouse? What is that in the middle there?
Oops. That's kind of a stand-in for the club room leasing fitness area. So it's really a placeholder for now, but that will be the central building for those amenities.
All right. Really like the walkway, and at one point, you're going through one of your slides there, and it looked like you had like a double walkway with a guy riding a bike and somebody
Yeah, looks
walking on the other side, and the sidewalks were split. Really looks nice. Really like that. Hope you can keep that. I'm not seeing it in my notes here, but
So not trying to
Yeah,
contrast,
right.
not trying to contrast this with the earlier conceptual review. I mean, I'm not asking for everything, right? You did a very good job presenting it. You know, this site has been vacant and blighted for quite some time. Understand, I get screenshots of people on Facebook going, oh, more apartments, or why can't we have a retail, why won't somebody put a Target there? Why won't somebody put a Woodman's there? So those retailers, right? I mean, Woodman's has apparently looked at the site historically and decided to pass on it. Retail's not expanding like it used to, right? So when you see the amenities of, well, this is where the packages will get dropped off, that's probably a lot of future retail, whether we like it or not, or whether we're used to that or not.
It is already.
It is pretty much is sort of like that already.
Yeah, it's really,
So a Woodman's, if they took this entire 25-acre site, is probably worth $20 million total. Maybe they'll say they're worth like Walmart 6, but probably $25 million. This development is multiples of that. And when people talk about taxes and what are you doing, and you know, we could put kind of, I don't want to call it junky, less quality stuff in, but long-term, that probably acts as a detriment to the community. This will make places within our community worth more because it's quality. The one that we had earlier tonight, I'm not trying, and this isn't meant to be negative, but that potentially doesn't add the kind of value to the community long-term that a project like this does. That vacant shopping center has been a blighted eyesore to this community for a very long time. And I wish it was still a W.A. Grant store, and I wish there was still a Little Fish store in the center of it. And I wish you could get double burger baskets at Walgreens from Patty Weber, who used to live in the neighborhood next to it. But this is, I think, and I don't, I'm not some kind of futurist or something, but this is, you are? This is sort of the future.
Where's your gonna be around?
And I support the continuing adjustments that you make to the plan. I mean, the neighborhood is incredibly important to us, right? It's maybe, I can't remember how many houses there are, 11 or 13, 12, 13 in the neighborhood for the most part. But for your homes, how many are there? 1, 2,
count driveways.
I thought there were 13. I used to park in that end of that street.
that's
over
plain
there.
field there.
By the Weber's house. Did you know the Weber's?
Can I have a minute to speak a little bit?
So this is just conceptual review, but it probably would help if you come up and say your name, and this isn't a public hearing, this is.
Sure. I was at the last meeting about this a couple months ago, and I think, my name is John Shesky, 4236 South 82nd Street. I'm Jeff Krenz's across the street neighbor. and I think this is a giant improvement. A couple of questions, there's more egress to that property right now with driveways than you're leaving right there. People are gonna be lined up if they have jobs and going to work. They're gonna be lined up trying to get out of there. I think there's just not enough road space and not enough ways for people to get out of there without getting anxious and screeching out into Forest Home or Cold Spring Road. It looks like the drive from behind the Walgreens, which was, is behind Myers, is gone. The one that out on Forest Home, wherever you put it, it's still on Forest Home, better be away from the intersection.
This is a better location.
That's an improvement,
clearly.
I'll give you that one. I'm not sure how happy the people that live on the other side of the green space are gonna be happy about that. I think that, I know nobody wants to hear this, but I think you got kind of a few too many buildings there, a few too many people. I don't know if there's children there where they're gonna go to school. My kids went to school in Greenfield. Greenfield is pretty full. My kids are older now, but I think you're packing a lot in the area. I like the idea of a green space, but honestly, it's in the middle and it's a long ways away from most of the people. I'd rather see a little bit less in the building department, a little more space in between. The other guys had a big problem with snow and a lot of other problems with that design. So I think you're gonna have the same thing here. I don't know where the snow is gonna go. If we get snow, and I expect we're going to, I'm 69 years old. I've seen years with lots. I've seen years with almost none. We've had 3 years with not quite so much. Guess what? Maybe it's coming next year. I don't know. But people are not going to be happy hauling it away. A comment about Myers. Don't know the people. I eat there once in a while. A lot of old people go eat there. When I'm going for my walk, I walk right through there. And they're scared of me walking through there at 2 miles, 3.5 miles an hour. You're gonna scare the hell out of them if cars are trying to get out of there. There's no way to get to Myers except the Forest Home, or I don't know how you, from 76th Street past this one, past that one. I think Myers is not gonna be happy unless they have a better egress to their parking lot and not having people riding through their parking lot, just because a lot of their clientele is older people. They're having their 11 o'clock lunch and their 3:30 dinner, and they pack it pretty full. So it's a much improved over the other one. I hate to say this because it means money. A few less buildings, a little more space, spread the green space around. The only people in the middle can see the green space. The rest of them can't even hardly drive to it. So I think it's too many people. I think it's too little grass. I think the Myers thing kind of crappy, but
They gotta meet with, so this is like-
preliminary, but everything is,
This
I
is a
understand all that.
conceptual review and all that stuff. And
But
they're-
I'm not an expert. I was a tool and die maker. I wasn't a building designer, but I've lived in this area for 42 years, I think it is. I like it. I don't want to see 1 million people moved in. I don't know if the schools are going to handle them. I don't know if the police department is ready for it. I don't know if the fire department is ready. I talked to the firemen over at Myers across the street, and I said, hey, how tall of a building can you fight? Because the other people were talking about a big, tall building. They said, well, they got to call Milwaukee for assistance.
That's not true.
So in this case, well, he
So, you
said,
know, we can
he said over 4 stories, they have a hard.
We can go up to 100 feet, which is 9 stories.
Okay, well, the fireman, and he was just a fireman,
Yeah.
he told me that over
Is he
4.
a young one, or? No.
Everybody looks young to me, sir.
Yeah,
I
me
don't-
too now.
Yeah.
So we have a ladder truck that was $1.1 million.
He said over 4 stories, it's getting,
That's not
maybe he doesn't like to go on high places, shouldn't have been a fireman, I guess. So anyhow, those are some of my inputs on that. Again, the snow, the parking, the green space, the lots of streets, lots of people. Hope the school can handle them. Hope the police and fire are ready for this. I don't know how many bedrooms are gonna be there, but to me, it looks like a lot. They look like really nice buildings. I like it much better than a giant tall building. They were talking a few single-family homes. If I lived along that green space, I'd rather see a neighbor behind me with a house and a yard than a green space. Green space to me is where kids are gonna be running over there shooting rocks at rabbits. And I'd rather see, my backyard has a neighbor in it, and I get along with them just fine. I even get along with Mr. Krenz across the street.
Do you really? I
But
would-
yes,
If he was my neighbor, I would not get along with him.
it took a while, but we're doing great now. Anyhow, so, I would rather see some single-family homes or some duplexes sprinkled in there and not quite so many, massive buildings. But,
So the problem today is construction costs, right?
and I understand you're
that's-
reducing the profit, you're increasing the cost, I understand that, I'm not part of this project, so it doesn't matter to me what the profit is. I want to see them build a really nice place that fits into the neighborhood a little better. And I don't see these places being really popular. I know some people that live in apartment complexes, and they kind of hate it. So most people that I've talked to, and I talk to a lot of people because I'm retired, I'm an old guy, they like a four-family, someone takes care of the stuff. They don't have a lot of no yard maintenance. They don't have a ton of neighbors. They get to know everybody around them, and they're much happier. They make a little community out of the building. So, big improvement, in my opinion, a little further to go. But I'm not sitting up there, I'm sitting out here.
Well, this is the first meeting, so I suspect that there will be a little bit more to go.
Okay,
This is
well,
the first yeah, no, like,
and I understand, and since you publish them, I'll probably be here next time, so.
oh, you could, no, yeah.
I'm not gonna scream and yell, you're doing a great job, you're moving in the right direction. I know that reducing the amount of people that are gonna be there reduces the profit, increases the cost per square foot.
So the-
All the services, the police, the fire, all the restaurants, the Myers that I shop at, it gets pretty full on the weekends. I mean, the parking lot's not completely full,
The restaurant or the grocery store?
pardon?
The grocery store or the restaurant?
The grocery store. Yeah, the restaurant. Not the restaurant, the grocery store. The Myers never gets really full. They got a lot of parking around that place, in front and on the side. They
The
got,
grocery store.
Myers.
no, the restaurant.
Yeah, and just so you know, all of
Grocery
these.
store gets busy, the restaurant doesn't get busy.
The grocery store gets filled with people. I don't know if you're gonna put 500 people in there where they're gonna shop, because if they come on a weekend, they're gonna have to walk across the street.
Myers? You're talking about this one here?
Yeah, they're gonna have to walk across the street. 'cause
No,
they're not-
this is the restaurant. This isn't the grocery store.
I understand. The
He's
restaurant's
flopped.
never
He's
full.
flip-flopping.
The restaurant's got tons of parking right now. That's gonna hopefully be in that little square. But the grocery store, across the street gets pretty full, and there's not a lot of space to park there. So they're gonna have, people that from here are gonna have to walk across the street to do their grocery shopping. So, that's okay. Don't hurt them. It's
Oh,
good.
no, you're talking about the picket, okay.
Yeah.
Now I get it.
And,
Now I
yeah,
get it.
pick and
Okay,
save.
pick and save. You call it
Yeah.
pick and save. It's a Meyer,
Yeah.
not really a pick and save anymore.
I was gonna ask about the shuttle service from
Yeah,
60th
the
to.
pick and, the pick and save, it's got a small parking lot, they used to be in this parking lot.
So whenever you hear Pick and Save complain and blame the city for what their parking lot looks like, it's not because of us.
No, they
No, they
decided,
always do it.
that's where
I've
they
been in
built
the
it.
store and the manager said.
They didn't
somebody
know you were
complains.
gonna put 500 people across the street, though.
So
Yeah.
he's saying that the parking lot is gonna be a lot worse, because it's already full, Pick and
Yes.
Save's already full, and now when we put all these people across the street.
Right, you're bringing a ton of people into
you
a
know how
neighborhood
many-
that area has nobody living, well, that one
You
family
know how many
living.
people live within 5 miles of 84th and Layton? Guess.
I have no idea, I couldn't,
Ooh, I wanna know.
270,000.
okay,
So within 5 miles of 84th and Layton, there are 270,000 people. And this is 260 units or something,
Yeah.
multiply that.
250
times
units
two.
is 500 or 600 people,
It's
though.
500 or 600 people.
Yeah, 250
On
units.
top
is-
of the 270,000 people that are within probably 5 miles.
I guess
So,
it-
I'm
it-
just-
if
it
there's-
will do what you say.
If half of those people have 2 kids, that's 500 kids,
That'd be great.
Okay, I didn't do the math right, I know that.
Jacoby.
And if some of them, well, yeah.
But there's 500 kids, they're gotta go someplace.
Yeah.
I don't think those schools have any extra capacity to take.
So the school systems do have capacity now because enrollment has been declining
Okay, okay.
generally.
That
That's
Rubens
because a lot of us
and
old
Jacoby.
people live there and our kids left, and we're happy about it. So, all right, well, thank you for
No,
listening to my.
but thank you for listening. Is there anything else that you need? Oh, do you want? Okay.
I was
Maggie.
just wondering, these 16 spot rectangles, are those covered or are those open lots? They're covered, okay.
Are they garages or just covered?
They're garages.
Yeah.
Architecturally matched garages.
Are they gonna be an additional rent, do you know, or are they gonna be included?
Those will be additional rents.
Okay.
Hi, my name is James Geigel, 4810 South 82nd Street. I just had a few questions. Has there ever been a study done that you need all these apartments? Because you got those areas on Loomis and Layton and everything else. It seems they're building more and more. I just worry about, once there's too many apartments, they can't fill them, and they start taking anything for rent. And I don't like it
There
with
is a-
being the
So generally
transit.
speaking, before they can get financing from a bank, they have to do a study. There's a company called Tracy Cross, which is one, but there's other companies that do it. So they talk about absorption rates and they talk about future demand and they do it, I don't know if they use AI, I don't know what they use, but they have all the algorithms of what they think the market can sustain and support. That a true statement?
But it's
So
worry
they
about
wouldn't-
things coming too transit
It's-
because
there's-
once people don't have money stuck in owning an apartment or a house or anything, they don't take care of it. I mean, it might not look good for 10 years, but things start to change as the buildings get older and people move in and out. So I just worry about being a negative in the long run rather than a positive. And I think the way taxes are now, we don't need anything either to bring the value down, so.
I think we have,
That's just
I think
all I
we
have
have
to
to
say.
look, you said, you don't want it to be worse in the future. We have to kind of look at what it is right now. And
Well,
this is
and-
the
yeah.
future.
And
It's
trends
better.
are leading away from home ownership in other generations.
It seems that way.
It seems to be the trend.
So what was important to us as a city, I mean, the folks that are sitting next to you to your right are probably the premier people that do this. Honest to God, I mean, you can look them up and you can see examples of their work. That was important to the city when we looked at the folks that were contemplating redeveloping this site. Because there are other people, and I always call them the Indiana, they're from Indiana, these real estate investment trust folks from Indiana. I don't know why they're from Indiana, maybe they're not from Indiana. But they would come in and they'd say, oh yeah, we'll buy that and we'll put in probably 3 times as many blue buildings, right? You know, like 48, 60 unit building, 24 unit buildings, narrow hallways, vinyl siding, 3-tab shingled roofs, right? So when people think of apartments, and Greenfield is littered with examples of that from the 60s and 70s. The goal for us is to make sure that we put quality in to begin with, because we recognize in 20 years it's going to be a little bit different. And I'm not trying to be critical of the conceptual review earlier tonight, but this is sort of the direction that we really need to go in to make sure the kinds of things that you're talking about don't happen.
So as a neighborhood, I think a project like this probably insulates you from any problems for 40, 50 years down the road. If there are problems, it's not going to be where we will have problems in Greenfield sometime in the future, if things keep on digressing in the way that they are. It's going to be the other apartment places that are already built that are degraded. These are going to be substantial increase to your neighborhood for quite a long, long period of time. So by having such quality move in right now, your neighborhood is kind of being insulated from future problems down the road. Does that make sense?
And then,
I understand what you're saying. I mean, I used to own a duplex, and it was on 51st and Howard. And next to me, the guy that didn't live there, he rented the upper and lower to some people, and he rented the lower to a motorcycle gang, which was pretty cool, except they were welding in the basement, and there'd be a couple motorcycles in the yard all winter. So I understand this is a nicer looking development, and you're doing, it's a nice looking job. I have the same concern that my friend here does, that when it's not rented, everybody's welcome. And government subsidized housing, I lived near some government subsidized housing. I lived on the north side 40 years ago, and there was some government subsidized housing, and it wasn't always maintained as well. I know this is not that kind of a thing, but when you get rent assistance sometimes, you don't get people to take care of their car, or they leave the junk car there until someone else hauls it away. And if this is
It's a constant struggle we have a couple apartment units that are older, and I say this, it's really only a couple, that those kinds of problems still exist.
We moved to Greenfield because we drove around and we liked it.
Yeah.
I mean, my parents lived here in this area, they're gone, but that's why that's why we're here, because they thought, wow, this is really nice. A lot of single-family home, a lot of trees, a lot of good, you know, here. But this is a big development, and it's kind of
So-
scared me a little bit how big it is.
So just to be clear, the Pick and Save store that was there was the number one Pick and Save company-wide as far as sales on a weekly basis. The sheer amount of traffic that used to go through that shopping center, transient traffic, people come in and go shopping, is significantly higher than anything that'll be coming in and out of this. Most people go to work and come home, right? Or
We had 4 ways to get in and out of that.
now there's only 2. I share your concern with regard to the entrance near the Walgreens on the west side there, or the east side of Walgreens.
Yeah.
Because that is one of the entrances that's used a lot,
And I don't see a lot of people leaving out of that entrance.
but they come in there.
I see them coming in there because they're from 76th Street. A lot of them come in from the other direction. People that live right around there don't go down 76th Street and come in. You know, they'll come around the back way. And that's the side, that side of the building there is where they have their giant dumpster. And
Yeah,
their
so those are the things that they have to work out with my, you know.
Their service and their deliveries come right there, and sometimes they're blocking that road, a little bit, you know.
Sure.
And nobody really cares right now, because nobody lives over there, so.
Agreed. So, okay, so this has gotten beyond, this isn't a public hearing, this is just them.
I appreciate you
But-
listening to me.
I didn't want to, but. But I figured it was the right thing to do, right? The more you say now, the less you'll say later.
And if you don't listen to me, I'll get madder and madder and madder, you know.
I don't get mad.
It's gonna get better, so, no. All right, thank you.
They get mad. She gets mad because she's got to go home to see her kids. So, but that's. And when we talk about family and children and schools, it's important that she be able to
Not even
raise
8
her,
o'clock yet, she's got time yet.
right? Kind of.
It's
It's not even 9 o'clock. You want to stay for another, you got anything else to talk about?
I don't know, I didn't look at the rest of the list, I'm done.
Yeah, I think that was probably the big one. Is Landmark Credit Union here? We've got, because this guy talked too much, we can't get to your item tonight. All right. I'm only kidding, of course. So we're good? We're good with your presentation? All right. Anything, Chrissy? Anybody have other comments?
I just want to say it's very well thought out, and it looks very good, and it's, a lot of things were considered, and I can tell that a lot went into it.
And we've only had a little over a month to do it.
Okay?
Yeah.
I think it's,
You know, so just to be clear too, when we picked, right, we are always concerned about, well, what are they do, you know, now that they have control, are they gonna just dink around? And these folks have been incredibly responsive. They listen. They do listen, from what I can tell, or at least they say they listen. No, they listen, I think.
it's a lot of parking too.
And just the things that we talked about the first time around with the other folks, these guys clearly listened to some of those discussions early on, because there was parking when Jimmy has his birthday party, and there is access to the trail, and it does all sort of fit in, and there is the opportunity for, you know, law enforcement and the fire trucks and stuff to circulate the property. So for the first go-around, it's pretty amazing, and so.
The access to the trail is another place for somebody who broke into an apartment to get away, though. That would be my opinion of it. Nobody that's
So-
gonna walk on the trail really needs access to it, because you can go to 76th Street or Forest Home and get to the trail really easy.
Yeah,
There are very few other accesses that aren't on main roads.
So I don't want to give away too much, but most of the people that are doing bad stuff are doing it in cars. They're not going to get on a bike and drive down the park. There might be some kids that are doing stupid stuff,
That's what I was gonna say, it's stupid kids.
and they're usually flying down Forest Home or 76th Street.
Well, they're robbing the Walgreens and getting on the expressway right away, so.
They're doing that with great regularity there.
Yes.
So part of the reason too that something like this is good is that the more activity there is, the more people that are around, the less likely they're going to pick off the Walgreens that's surrounded by a vacant shopping center. Right? That's part of it too.
Yes.
Yeah,
The more people there are, the less likely, or I can assure you that it doesn't matter how many people there are for some people, but
You're absolutely correct about that, right?
Yeah.
That's why my vote's for a police substation over there.
Zach, did you?
So we're not ever gonna do a police substation over there? Cause cause that model doesn't work. Franklin tried it at the Walmart on 27th Street. And so just so you know, put one person in a substation, it's essentially 4.3 people.
Okay.
So we don't wanna do that. And that's just have one person there, right? Cause it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And then they have vacation and they have all this other stuff. So it's not just 3 people, it's,
I understand.
so we're not gonna do that.
Don't do that.
You can say how smart I am for not.
You-
I'm just kidding.
I can tell
You
you
said
what-
that before, and it's like, you're my best friend now.
I
It's
can
like,
tell you know
nobody
what I'm
says
talking
that.
about, you know, but,
So, all right.
I
I gotta get the Landmark Credit Union guy, because he's just like dozing back there, right? You
Mr.
gonna
Mayor,
make it?
Zach was wanting to say
Missed the Bucks game tonight because of that?
He
right?
said it's okay.
All right, signage, 9 is signage plan appeal for Landmark Credit Union located at 8300 West Layton Avenue, submitted by J. Kala Hodges, Assign Effects Inc.
This is a very easy waiver request. They're requesting a second electronic message center.
I'd make a motion.
Thank
to
you.
approve-
Motion. I make a
By
motion to accept.
Commissioner Rogers, there's second by Commissioner Carlson, all in favor? Sorry we couldn't do that earlier.
You could have put me on before that last.
We put it in the order we receive
I
applications.
know, I was late.
Sorry, I didn't mean to do that to you, so.
It was a joy.
It comes in
I-
order,
I
right?
like listening to you, you're
Do you?
fine.
I am. Wait until people realize that I'm really not the mayor, I'm his brother. Just kidding. No, I really am, I think, the mayor, at least for another month.
Great meeting, Gabe.
All right,
Thank you.
and the ordinance to amend section 2106-0103 of the municipal code pertaining to stormwater management plan requirements.
So the code actually requires the city to borne the cost or assess the area for storm sewer pipes over 48 inches. We do not want that to be the case anymore. We are recommending approval to just say when the city requires it, developer shall assume the cost.
Make a motion, or can somebody,
Public hearing would be next week already. We kind of fast-tracked this.
motion to make a positive recommendation to the change by Commissioner Carlson, is there a second?
I will second the motion.
Oh,
Is that your neighbor, Mr. Krenz? That's your neighbor?
Yeah, do I have to admit it?
Yeah, well, he already admitted it for you. If you don't admit it, you'd be lying.
Jeff, that's correct.
Second by Commissioner Zach. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. Item 11, discontinues the general right-of-way immediately east of 2801 West Mallory.
There's a tiny little sliver of right-of-way. It's not the drive path behind this business. It's actually, this property owner at 2801 treats it as if it's their private land. Their driveway is in right-of-way.
There's no utilities there.
There's, no, the city is very much looking forward to vacating
Make a
this.
motion to discontinue the right-of-way. Is there a second by Commissioner Carlson? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, motion carries. You don't have a report, do you?
No, because the big stuff kind of came before us tonight, so.
All right. The turf got the kickoff. We signed,
Ribbon
the
cutting.
council approved contracts for rehabilitation of the bowls and for the streetscape park part of it. That should begin this spring, I hope. June 15th, and Pastor Rogers may not like this one as much, but June 15th is the turf event at Conkle Park. It's going to be probably a non-traditional family event, but we'll have live music throughout the day. There's going to be a BMX, someone sponsored a BMX sponsorship. There's the potential working with a couple national companies to bring in skateboarders and stuff and pipe, what are those things called? Half pipes and stuff, and
I
so it's
might
going to be a
not make
pretty,
it, but I probably will have kids that will be there.
you should go. It's going to be, I think, a little bit more of the hip and upcoming kind of, which is why I immediately thought of you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for calling me out on that.
Just kidding. I've known you for a long time.
Because I was around when that was first popular, when I was 12 or 13 into high school.
So.
And I remember riding down the bachelor officers' quarters on my skateboard and somebody coming out and yelling at me too.
So I've been reminded that Commissioner Carlson cannot get on a skateboard
Correct, sir?
or ice skate. Because you're not like, just,
Yeah, or even help clean parks anymore.
well, you can still do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but you can't.
That was my ankle.
That was at your ankle. Well, maybe you should supervise.
That's what I did last year. I handed out bags.
I got the complaints, I know. I didn't get any complaints. Thank you. Make a motion to adjourn. Is there a
Make a motion
second?
to adjourn.
By Commissioner Carlson. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Rogers. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for your patience tonight. I did not think that would.
I knew it was a pretty long meeting.
Did you?
I assume.
I wasn't sure what was happening there,
Yeah.
but.